Welcome to our discussion of the methods section or chapter 3 of a dissertation or capstone. The methodology section or chapter can be considered a process chapter. It explains what you did and how you did it. You are proving the reliability and validity of the research. Even within a particular field or department, the organization and the parts of a methods section may differ. This is often due to the design of the study. Different items may be needed for a quantitative study than a qualitative study. Different tools will also require different aspects and explanations. For example, a statistical tool may require a discussion of validity, whereas a qualitative study may require a discussion of the choices behind its structure and data saturation. Initially, Chapter 3 is a discussion of what you are planning to do, so it will be written in the future tense. After completing the project, you will describe what you did and use the past tense. It is a straightforward chapter and it requires detail. Imagine writing for someone who wants a blueprint to replicate the study. As with all materials in this dissertation capstone module, please consult with your department guidelines for specifics about the methods section. The questions in this presentation are meant to guide you during the writing process. Your mentor may have different questions or aspects that need to be included. The first step in a methods section is to remind the readers of the topic and research question. This is very brief but necessary. It may feel redundant as you went into great detail about the topic and research question in Chapter 1 and you mentioned it again in Chapter 2. But it helps to develop the connection between the research question and the process used to reply to that question. You will need to explain why you are conducting this study in this particular way. You're reminding your readers and your committee that you know the rationale behind what you are doing and that your choices were made deliberately. Consider the following. Is this a standardized methodology for your field, or do you need to justify it? Are there ethical implications? What are the criteria for validity and reliability for this type of research? For the design discussion, first explain the type of study you are conducting and why it fits your research question. Then provide support through expert-authored articles to back up your approach. Some programs may want you to include a theoretical framework here as opposed to in Chapter 2. The context is where the study is taking place. Some departments may want you to specifically identify the location, such as the name of a school or hospital, while other departments may want for you to scrub identifiers and use broader, vaguer language when discussing the location. Location includes the context, such as population demographics, socioeconomic, environmental, and cultural factors, basically any information that is important to your topic and research question. Here is an example of a context discussion. The topic is a study introducing higher education early in schools to offer more options in communities where the majority of students either do not complete high school or opt for a GED. The discussion begins with the geographic location and then supplies pertinent information. In this instance, career paths and population demographics are important, as there is a variety of underserved communities when it comes to educational attainment. Aspects of the school where the study is taking place are also important to situate a reader. Context may also include the organizational culture related to administration or management, along with financial data and staffing information. You'll most likely discuss stakeholders here and provide information about their roles and responsibilities within the project. In terms of participants, you'll first explain the type of sampling used, and you may need to describe recruitment efforts if that is a part of the participant pool or sampling procedure. Next, describe the sampling frame. For example, if discussing women who suffered a miscarriage, the sampling frame may be those who are attending a support group. Explain the inclusion and exclusion criteria. For our prior example, inclusion criteria may be women of a certain age or those who have not been able to bring a pregnancy to term. Be careful, as exclusion criteria is developed after the inclusion criteria. For example, if I were doing a study and my inclusion criteria was 18 to 24-year-olds, I would not include people under the age of 18 as an exclusion criteria, as it was built into the inclusion criteria. Some additional questions to guide this part of the chapter include: how was the size of the study determined? In a quantitative study, will the sample size provide results of statistical significance? For qualitative studies, will the sample size provide data saturation? If you need to include recruitment information, this slide will provide you with questions to ask so that appropriate information is provided. Remember, you do not include final sample size and demographics in Chapter 3. Basically, anything that you did not know prior to the study should not appear in Chapter 3. The first 3 chapters continue to exist as a type of proposal, even though the tense changes after the study is finished. Items that are learned during the study appear in Chapters 4 and 5. When working with human subjects, it is necessary to address any risks they may face, any ethical considerations, and consent issues. Describe how subjects will be protected. If including vulnerable populations, additional considerations will need to be discussed. Include any IRB information. A copy of the IRB and copies of all consents and risk management will be included as appendices. This part of the chapter describes how the data will be collected and what tools will be used. It is important to address participants' privacy. This is separate from risks and consent as it refers to the handling of the data. Describe how the data will be protected, where it will be stored, and who will have access to it. Also include when and how it will be destroyed. Certain considerations need to be given to qualitative versus quantitative studies in terms of data collection. For qualitative studies, the questions on this slide may be useful. For quantitative studies, the questions on this slide may be useful. The remaining part of the methods chapter is usually dedicated to data analysis. Remember, this refers to the plan for analysis and not what actually occurred, which will be discussed in Chapter 4. Qualitative and quantitative studies have different aspects that need to be included in the data analysis. The questions on this slide will help you if your study is qualitative. The questions on this slide will be helpful if you are conducting a quantitative study. This presentation will help you to put some thoughts on paper for your initial draft of your methods chapter. Again, consult with your department and mentor to develop the chapter further. If you have questions about the methods section, please contact the Writing Center at writingcenter@usa.edu.